So we were talking about the classification of crystalline solids, molecular solids, ionic solids, metallic solids, and covalent solids. So we had talked about non-polar, polar, and hydrogen bonded. Sorry, only the non-polar. Now the polar ones. Crystalline solids comprised of noble gas atoms. Those are non-polar or the same atoms or the balanced atoms. Okay, means all the dipoles are cancelled. For example, CCl4, CO2, benzene, etc. So either the noble gases when they are in solid form, remember, okay, not in gaseous form, or when we have the same atoms, or when the dipole moments are cancelled. Molecules are held by London forces, and London forces we have already talked about the weakest type of forces where all the molecules are non-polar, but sometimes due to disturbance, polarity might get generated in one, and that will induce the polarity in the other one, but these are temporary. The moment disturbance is gone, the dipole is gone. They are soft non-conductors of electricity. There is no medium of any charge carriers, electrons or ions. So that's why they are non-conductors. Very low melting point, and many of these actually at room temperature exist as gases. Are usually in liquid or gaseous state at room temperature and pressure. Polar molecular solids. Crystalline solids comprised of polar molecules, that is HCl, SO2, urea, etc. Do remember that examples. Okay. SO2 is a polar molecule because it has lone pair. But it's not similar to CO2. In CO2, the dipole moments are cancelled. In SO2, dipole moments are not cancelled. Molecules are held by dipole-dipole forces. One HCl molecule, another HCl molecule. Dipole-dipole forces. Soft and non-conductors of electricity, but harder than non-polar. Have low melting points, but higher than non-polar molecular solids. NPMS means non-polar molecular solids. Are usually in liquid or gaseous state at room temperature and pressure, but remember that these are harder than non-polar molecular solids and have melting point low but higher than non-polar molecular solids. Hydrogen bonded molecular solids. So we have talked about it, that instead of talking about HCl, if we talk about HF, then there will be hydrogen bond because fluorine, oxygen, and nitrogen, they form a special bond with hydrogen. Then in that case, it will be hydrogen bond, which is stronger than dipole-dipole interaction. So that's why this has been categorized separately. Otherwise, it is just dipole-dipole interaction. Similar to HCl, here it is HF. But because there is greater force of attraction here, which has been termed as hydrogen bond, it is mentioned separately. Pushi Srivastava, not HCl, because in HCl there is no hydrogen bonding. Only fluorine, oxygen, and nitrogen form hydrogen bond. That's why, not chlorine. These are generally volatile liquids or soft solids under room temperature and pressure. Why these are actually soft solids instead of, in previous cases, we talked about liquid or gases at room temperature. And the reason is hydrogen bond is much stronger than dipole-dipole interaction. Ionic solids now. Crystalline solids comprised of ions, cations, and anions. That is common sense. NaCl, LiF, MgO, ZnF, CF2, K2SO4, all these are ionic solids. They possess strong Coulombic forces due to cation and anion interaction. So due to electrostatic forces, they are hard. Okay, high melting point. That's why they have high melting point and high boiling points. Insulators in solid state, we know that it's NaCl insulator in solid state, but conductors in aqueous or molten state. Soluble in polar solvents like water. Kushi Shrastava, your question. All the salts will come under ionic solids. Yes, by definition, salts are those which get dissociated in ions when dissolved in a particular solvent. Okay? Not necessarily in water, mostly in water. So yes, the answer is yes. All salts will be considered as ionic solids. Remember, complex or coordination compounds which may look like salts are not actually salts. Okay, we are not talking about the secondary valence. We are talking about only primary valence. Metallic solids. Crystalline solids comprised of positively charged metal ions, which are known as kernels. So for example, if I say iron conducts electricity, so in that case, Fe2 plus will be considered as kernel. Cu2 plus will be considered as kernel. And free electrons. So kernel positively charged, free electrons negatively charged. Okay, Aviral. So here all metals and alloys. So there will be a question, very simple question appears for examples. Okay, you will be given 4 or 5 substances out of which you will have to find which are metallic, which are molecular, which are ionic, which are covalent. So if you see metals and alloys, obviously we are talking about all crystalline. So whether we are talking about ionic, whether we are talking about metallic, all these are crystalline solids. Okay, but out of which metallic will be metal and alloys. They possess high thermal and electrical conductivity. You know that all metals have. Possess luster and color, highly malleable and ductile. So this is something you have been studying from your 4th, 5th grade. Next, covalent or network solids. These are crystalline solids which comprise of non-metal atoms linked by covalent bond. And it is important to note that because there will be questions shortly and this will help you to find the network or covalent solids. These are two different names for the same thing, covalent or network solids. Non-metal atoms linked by covalent bonds. Giant molecules, these are big molecules. That is another differentiating factor so that you can differentiate between molecular solids and covalent solids. Example, diamond, graphite, SiC, silicon carbide, okay, SiO2, and aluminum nitride. This is ALN, aluminum nitride. And remember SiO2, I have written quartz because SiO2 is same formula for glass also. Glass is amorphous, not crystalline, and we are talking about crystalline solids. So covalent solids are those ones in which non-metal atoms linked by covalent bonds. Last one is aluminum nitride, ALN. A few exceptions are there, which I will be talking about. So diamond, this is the structure. So if you see, there are chains of the bonds, okay, network of the bonds. So that's why these are called network solids. In diamond, all the carbon atoms are bonded with neighboring carbon atom tetrahedrally. As covalent bonds are very strong and directional, covalent solids are very hard and brittle. Why very hard? Because the bond is very strong. Why brittle? Because they are directional. So both are related. If very hard is related to very strong bonding, and brittle is related to directional. Why? Because the moment direction is disturbed, the whole bond chain is broken. And that's why they shatter. So they are brittle, unlike the metallic solids. The metal bonds are not directional. So that's why metals are not brittle, rather they are ductile or malleable. If you beat them, they will get converted into sheets. If you stretch them, they will get converted into wire, metallic solids, okay, metals or alloys. But here covalent or network solids are brittle because they are directional. Extremely high melting point. The reason is again due to a network of covalent bonds. A few covalent solids can even decompose before melting. So the melting point in few cases is so high that the covalent solids might get decomposed before melting. They are insulators. Okay? For example, diamond is insulator. Exception is graphite. And you know why? Because there is one electron which is not bonded, which is free. So graphite is a covalent solid, but it is soft and good conductor of electricity. This is because carbon atoms are arranged in layers. The term is important here, and that's why the graphite acts as solid lubricant, because layers can slide one over the other. So this is how the structure of graphite looks like. Here the fourth carbon is not bonded. So in each layer, each carbon atom is linked to three neighboring carbon atoms, not four. So in diamond, if you see here, each carbon atom is linked to four. One, two, three, four. And it forms tetrahedral structure. But here in this case, in case of graphite, each carbon is attached to only three. One, two, three. So fourth electron is free to move. Hence good conductor of electricity. Distance between the layers is greater than CC bond length. So layers are far apart from one another and soft and acts as good solid lubricant. Layers are far apart from one another. They do not have much force of attraction. They can slide one over the other. So that's why graphite is good solid lubricant. Now the question to test your knowledge. Classify the following solids in different categories based on the nature of intermolecular forces operating in them. And these type of questions appear. So you need to know the answer. Okay. So first one, potassium sulfate. Just let me check in the chat window who gives me correct answer. Okay, Mansha, but all are crystalline. Here I am talking about whether it is molecular solid, ionic solid, metallic solid, or covalent solid. Okay. This slide, Malvika, Avnish, there is no reason to show the question because I will be showing the compounds again or the solids again. Okay. So, for example, potassium sulfate, tin, benzene, this I will be showing one by one. Okay. You need to tell me this one. So, potassium sulfate, salt, ionic solid. Okay. Tin, Ritika, good. Mansha, yes. Karthik. So, it's a metal, metallic solid. Good. Karthik Dhanai. Benzene. This is something I gave you an example also. No, Khushi Singh. Mm, okay. Oh, she's yes, no. Okay. This is a molecular solid, and we talked about that all the dipole moments are cancelled. When I explained non-polar, I said non-polar can be solids of noble gases or where the atoms are of same element, H2, Cl2, etc., or where the dipole moments are cancelled. For example, SiCl4, CO2, and benzene. Non-polar molecular solid, benzene. Urea, this also I explained in the example. Good. Malvika, Tathagat, you need to mention polar, non-polar also. Avnish, you need to mention molecular or whatever. Mansha, okay, you need to mention the whole thing. Yes, Ritika, correct. You need to mention molecular also. So don't just say polar solid. Okay, most of you are giving me answer as either molecular or polar. You have to mention polar molecular solid. Aviral, correct. Okay. Ammonia. This one is tricky. Ammonia. Okay. Tathagat, Vijayant, Avnish, correct. Okay. So polar molecular solid, and you have rightly mentioned hydrogen bonded polar molecular solid. But hydrogen bonded will normally be when it is not a solid, normally in liquid state that is stronger. Okay. So even if you mention polyclar molecular solid, that is correct. But if you mention hydrogen bonded molecular solid, that is also correct. Okay. Not wrong. Water. Aviral, think again. Okay. Okay. Not aviral. Mm, yes. Upmanyu, Khushi. Malvika, Mansha, correct. Hydrogen bonded molecular solid. Yes, Aditya. In water, there is hydrogen bonding. Remember. So if we are talking about solid, that is ice, hydrogen bonded molecular solid. Zinc sulfide, Tathagat, Malvika, Kartik, Sushi, Srivastava, Upanyu, Aditya, Avnish, correct. Good. Aviral, correct. Zinc sulfide is ionic solid. It will get dissociated in ions. So if it is in solid form, there will be ions. Graphite, we have just talked about it. So no one should give me wrong answer. Tathagat, correct. Aviral, correct. Kritika, Mansha, Upmanyu, Malvika, Sushi Singh, Avnish. Yes, Avnish, it is exception, but which type of solid it is? Kartik Tyagi, correct. Okay. Vijayant, correct. Covalent or network solid. Yes, this is an exception because normally covalent and or network solids are very hard, but graphite is soft, and covalent and network solids are insulators, but graphite is conductor of electricity. So the exception is there, but it is anyway covalent or network solid. Okay, Avnish, good. Namita, yes, correct. Rubidium, this one 100% correct answer should be there. Tathagat, correct. Mansha, correct. Yes. Malvika, Ritika Pandey, good. The metals, so metallic solids. Metals and alloys will be metallic solids. Argon, we have talked about it in examples. Tathagat, which type of? You have to mention. Okay, there are three types of molecular solids. Malvika, Avnish, Upmanyu, correct. Aditya, correct. Sushi, Singh, Ritika, Vijayant, correct. Good. So argon will be non-polar molecular solid. I'm repeating, don't just write non-polar or just molecular solid. Yeah. The same mistake you are doing again, even after saying that you need to write complete name. That's why it is sometimes written as NPMS. NPMS means non-polar molecular solid. Yes, Mansha, every noble gas, if it is in the form of solid, then it is non-polar molecular solid. Silicon carbide. I have given you the example when I explained. Tathagat, correct. Mansha, Upmanyu, Ritika, Avni, Aviral. Good, very good. Covalent or network, solid. Good, very good. Some more solids and their types. So just note down so that you don't make any mistake. Rubidium we have already talked about. But ammonium phosphate, okay, lithium bromide, brass, rubidium, metallic, tetraphosphorus dicoxide, molecular, iodine molecular, phosphorus molecular, straightforward questions are asked here. Okay. More examples of covalent or network solid, silicon carbide, graphite you already know. And this one is important. Many students make mistake here. Silicon has covalent or network structure. Many students in past have written it as metallic bond. It is not a metal. Amorphous plastic, you know that. Now the question. Solid A is very hard electrical insulator in solid as well as in molten state and melts at extremely high temperature. What type of solid it is? Tathagat, Aditya, Karthik, Tyagi, Aviral, Mansha, Balvika, Ritika, Mansha. No, no, not Mansha. Karthik, Dhanai, Upmanyu, Kushi, Srivastava, Avnish. Correct. It is written as well as in molten state. So it is electrical insulator as well as in molten state. That is something very important. Okay. Which confirms it is covalent network solid. Okay. Yes. Rebanta also correct. Yes. Karthik Dhanai quartz is one of those examples. Mansha, it can't be polar because it is very hard and polar solids are not very hard. Molecular polar solids. Yeah. Next question. Ionic solids conduct electricity in molten state but not in solid state. Why? Yes, Avnish, Bhagat, correct. No, Aditya, Karthik, Dhanai, Mansha, Khushi, Srivastava. No, Khushi Srivastava. Ionic solids do not have electrons, conductivity due to electrons. Okay. Malvika, Karthik, Tyagi, Ritika, Aditya, no. Ionic solids have electricity due to ions, not electrons. You have to remember that. Yes, Kesar. So in molten state, ionic solids dissociate to give free ions and hence conduct electricity. Yes, Rivant. So electricity can be conducted through the movement of charges. The charges can be in the form of electrons or ions, but in ionic compounds, these have to be ions, not electrons. In metallic solids, these will be electrons. Next question. What type of solids are electrical conductors, malleable and ductile? This one is very easy. Sixth grade question. Okay, everyone correct. So I'm moving ahead. Next section, crystal lattice and unit cells. Basically, this is the most important part of this chapter. This chapter largely is all about crystal lattice and unit cells. And that's why in competitive examinations, this part is has greater preference. Okay? And try to understand what is lattice, what is unit cell, what type of unit cells are there. Okay. So crystal lattice is regular repeating arrangement of points in space. Simple statement. What is lattice? It is regular, means not irregular. Regular means at a specific distance. That distance is not changing. repeating arrangement of points in space. These points actually form the units. These units repeat. So points form units. When these units repeat in a regular fashion, then they form a lattice. The smallest part, which when repeated regularly in all the directions produces crystal lattice, is known as unit. Yeah, we call it unit cell. So lattices are two-dimensional and three-dimensional lattice. So two-dimensional lattice we will not be talking about. So this whole section is about three-dimensional lattices. So if we have one-dimensional lattice, it will be like this. All the atoms arranged in one line. So this is one-dimensional, only in x-axis direction. But suppose I repeat this whole line in y direction. So I'm repeating the whole line in y direction. Then it becomes two-dimensional lattice. Now, if I repeat this whole plane one over the other, so if I have this plane and I repeat this plane one over the other, then it becomes three-dimensional. Three-dimensional lattice. So mostly we will be talking about three-dimensional lattice, means it is regularly repeated in all three directions, all the directions. So instead of writing all three directions, we say all the directions. And this is the smallest repeating unit, which is unit cell. This is how we represent it. So it means it is formed when we have one atom here, another atom here. On all corners, we have one atom. So there will be 8 atoms, and these 8 atoms will actually form the top here, and then similarly the bottom. Yeah. So this will be one unit cell. Now primitive unit cell. So whatever I showed you, that is actually the primitive unit cell. Means there will be 4 atoms. Sorry, there will be atoms at 8 corners. So if it is a cube, one cube has 8 corners, and on all corners there are atoms. Now normally these are shown as points. These are not points. These will occupy as much space as possible. So they will actually, most of the times and many times, many of them will be touching. Wherever it is not possible, they can't touch. I'll show you. They won't, but they will be close enough to one another. But in the diagram, they are shown as points. unless we are talking about the percentage occupancy, okay, how much area is occupied, which we will be talking about later. And I will be just showing in a few seconds. Centered unit cell. Centered unit cell will be that one. And remember, we are talking about the arrangement of atoms in different types of solids. There are different types of solids, and these are the possible arrangements, what we are talking about. And I am talking about the arrangements only which actually exist. There can be many hypothetical arrangements. We are not going into those details. We are talking about only those arrangements which actually exist. Centered unit cell. Centered unit cell means there will be another atom at the center of something. That something can be body centered, means the atom can be at the center of the cube here, just in the middle. Another one can be face centered, which I'll show you, and then the end center. So body centered, face centered, and end centered. These two have something in common, but there is slight difference. And how you remember that, you don't get confused between these two, I'll tell you to remember that. So body centered is where the extra atom, apart from the corners one will always be there because that is the primitive one. Primitive one means that there are atoms on all 8 corners. So in all type of unit cells, these corners will be present, except when we will be talking about different types of compounds where a few spaces will be vacant, and then that will decide the formula. Okay, then we will be talking about voids. That is something different. Okay, but on the corners, these atoms will always be there. So body centered. The next one is face centered here. And face centered means on every face there is one atom. How do you identify? So first I am showing the corner ones. These are the corner ones, red. Now on top face, this is the one which is in the middle of the top face. And this is the one which is in the middle of the base, face, green ones. Now on the left side face, this is the one which is in the middle of the face. On right one, this is the one which is in the middle of the face. So a cube has how many faces? A cube has 6 faces in total. Okay, top, bottom, left, right, front, back. So top, bottom, green, left, right, black, and the front and back I am shading with solid blue. Front and back are blue ones. So on every face, there is one atom apart from the corners. This is called face-centered unit cell. Whenever there is face, it means on every face there is an atom. Every face. In the middle. Then it will be known as face center. Now body centered. Sorry, end centered. End centered is similar to the face one, but here only two faces. And how to remember it? Sometimes students get confused between face centered and end centered. End centered will have ends, means top end, bottom end. As one line has two ends, left and right, the end centered is again on face, but these are on the ends of the cube letters, cube unit. Yeah, units. Now it can be top bottom, it can be left right, or it can be front back, but there will be only one pair. Either it will be top bottom, or it will be left right, or it will be front back. Only on two opposite faces. Atom at the center of two opposite faces. So body centered in the middle. Just one. Face centered, six faces, six atoms in the middle. However, not all entirely six belong to this unit cell. I will be talking about later. But there are six atoms on six faces. And centered, two atoms on two opposite faces. Again, these two atoms on faces do not entirely belong to the unit cell. They belong to neighboring cell as well. Now, seven primitive unit cells and their possible variations. So, seven primitive unit cells, primitive are these ones. So, first memorize these all. So, here five and then two. IIT professors are very fond of this table. Very likely you get a question from this table in JEE. So first, just memorize the type of primitive unit cells. We will be talking about their structures. Cubic, tetragonal, orthorhombic, hexagonal, rhombohedral, or trigonal. Remember the difference in tetragonal and trigonal. Don't get confused. Then monoclinic and tri. Write down all these 7 types in your notebook: cubic, tetragonal, orthorhombic, hexagonal, rhombohedral or trigonal, monoclinic, and triclinic. And whatever time it takes, just spare 15-20 minutes today or tomorrow and make sure that you memorize this table. If you don't memorize, you will not be able to answer the questions related to this table. Just 10 to 15 minutes will be sufficient. Now, the second column shows possible variations. Means if it is cubic, their primitive will anyway be there. Okay? Primitive means no other extra atom is there. So it is just in the corners. But body centered and face centered are also possible in case of cubic, which I have already discussed. Okay. Now see here, in cubic, end centered is not written. So we are talking about only those lattices which actually exist. So it is not on us that we need to decide that we need, if it is cubic, it can be end centered. Possible variations are body centered and face centered. Tetragonal, primitive is anyway there, then body centered it can be there. Orthorhombic is the one where all four are possible. We will be talking about the structures later on. First, try to memorize. Hexagonal, just primitive, rhombohedral or trigonal, just primitive. Triclinic, just primitive. Monoclinic, it can be end centered also. Easy way to remember that hexagonal and rhombohedral or trigonal and triclinic, these three can be just primitive. No other possibility. Cubic and centered not possible. Monoclinic only and centered possible apart from primitive. So these are just opposite to one another. You can just a way to remember. Cubic and centered is not there. Monoclinic only and centered is there. Then the remaining one, tetragonal, has body center. Orthorhombic, I have already told you it has all four. So first remember the four. Okay. Orthorhombic, all four. Hexagonal, rhombohedral, or triclinic, only primitive. So four done. After that, cubic and monoclinic are opposite. Cubic cannot have end centered. Monoclinic, apart from primitive, it can have only end centered. Six done. Only the seventh one remaining, tetragonal. It is the only one which is only body centered possible, apart from primitive. Primitive, anyway possible for all. So this is the way to remember it. Otherwise, you will get confused. So segregate these in groups. Groups of which are only primitive. Group which all four orthorhombic. Then which are opposite, cubic and monoclinic. And the remaining one, tetragonal, is body centered. Then there are six parameters which define a unit cell. So if you had seen this diagram, this one, here six parameters are shown. The length of the edges and the angles between the edges. So if A is the length, and you need to remember the sequence, A is the length of an edge, then alpha will be the angle which are the edges other than A. If B is the length of the edge, then beta will be the angle between the edges other than B. If C is the length of the edge, then the angle gamma will be between the edges other than C, means opposite edges. And this is important to remember because there is a sequence and these values which actually decide the type of geometry. Okay? Monoclinic, triclinic, everything. Okay. So this sequence is important because if you don't remember the sequence, this whole concept will fail here. Because we will be talking about, for example, gamma is 120 degree. And if you say gamma is angle between A and B, sorry, B and C, then everything is wrong. Malvika Pandey, as I have already told you that we will be talking about only which are possible. But however, to answer your question, okay, in cubic, and centered is not possible because that is imbalanced. The forces between the atoms are not balanced. That's why. Okay? So whenever the forces amongst the atoms are not balanced, those are not possible. Moreover, when we will be talking about tetrahedral gaps, octahedral gaps, it will be more clear why these are not possible. Okay? So now you have to remember the column 3, 4, and 5. As I have already told you, this table is very important. So you have to remember that cubic is the simplest one, means all sides will be equal, all angles will be 90 degree. And you have to remember the examples as well. NaCl, zinc blende, copper. So you have to remember this table, but I'm moving ahead, then I'll come back to this table after explaining the structures. And these are the actually structures. So when I explain the structure, I will be talking about just these, that sides are not equal, but angles are equal. Then it will be orthorhombic. A is not equal to B, not equal to C, but angles are 90 degree. Means it is a cuboid. Okay. So all these in detail. Now, cubic primitive, all sides are equal and angles are equal, means it is just a regular cube. Then tetragonal primitive unit cell. And tetragonal, remember, this is the one which is only body centered possible. In this case, A equals to B not equal to C. but all angles are 90-degree. Means one side is not equal. Two sides are equal. The third is not equal. That is the only difference between cubic and tetragonal. So here, if you see A and B are equal, but C is not equal, then it becomes tetragonal. Only body centered, apart from primitive. Primitive is anyway possible. Then orthorhombic primitive unit cell. In this case, none of the sides is equal. And why none is equal? Because when the atoms combine together to form, say, face centered, they actually make the sides unequal. Because orthorhombic, when we are talking about orthorhombic, is possible, we say all types of the Bravais lattices. Basically, these are called Bravais lattices. Okay, so you need to remember the name also. So here, if I see orthorhombic, all four are possible, then it is orthorhombic. So instead of saying that if it is cubic, then these are possible, actually it is other way around. It is actually that when primitive, body centered, face centered, and end centered all are possible, then it will be orthorhombic. Because the adjustment of the atoms for body centered, face centered, end centered will make all the sides unequal. But to balance body centered, face centered, end centered, the angles have to be balanced. So that's why all the angles are still 90-degree. So easier way to remember that for first three, there is no change in angles. First, one side is not equal, then two sides are not equal. No sides are equal actually. Okay. So from cubic to tetragonal, tetragonal to orthorhombic. Easier way to remember. Then hexagonal. So hexagonal is actually a variation of trigonal. Gonal, gonal. You need to remember, easier way. Gonal to gonal, trigonal to hexagonal. No change in sides. A equals to B, not equal to C. But one angle becomes 120. And it is evident that it has to be 120-degree because we are talking about hexagon. And in regular hexagon, each angle is 120-degree. We know that. So easier way to remember. Then rhombohedral or trigonal. That is a variation of cubic. A equals to B equals to C. Okay. But none of the angles is 90-degree. Here, all the angles are 90-degree. Here, none of the angles is 90-degree. All angles are other than 90-degree. Those who remember the way I am explaining, they are able to recall. Okay. If you try to remember in sequence, you may not be able to recall easily. So pay attention. What I am telling you is much easier way to remember this table. And just give 15-20 minutes after the class so that you remember it. Then monoclinic and triclinic. None of the sides are equal in both monoclinic and triclinic. Okay. However, in monoclinic, two angles are 90-degree, alpha and gamma, beta is not 90-degree. In triclinic, this is easiest one to remember. It is just in terms of the edges and axial bonds. It is nothing is equal. Sides are not equal, angles are not equal, and none is 90 degree. Okay. And remember, you will have to give 15 to 20 minutes. It is important. So when we consider these one by one, orthorhombic, no side equal, but all angles are still 90 degree. So from cubic to trigonal, one side is not equal. From tetragonal to orthorhombic, no side is equal. So nothing changes in the angles all 90 degree. Now hexagonal is a variation of tetragonal. In tetragonal, we have two sides equal and all angles 90 degree. In hexagonal, we have two sides equal and one angle gamma as 120 degree. The hint is from hexagon. Why? Because the base here is hexagon. And in case of tetragonal, the base is square. So here base is square, tetragonal. Hexagonal base is hexagon. Otherwise, no difference. That's why gamma is 120 degree. Rhombohedral. Rhombohedral, all sides are equal. As I said, this is a variation of the first one. All sides are equal, the cubic. But none of the angles is 90 degree. All angles are equal, but not 90 degree. That's why the word rhombo, because all the faces are rhombus. And rhombus means all the sides are equal. So rhombus gives you a hint that sides are equal. Yes, Avnish, you can say tilted book structure, or this is something that you have a cube and you push it towards one side. So if you have a cube and you push it towards right, this will be the shape you will get, rhombohedral. Rhombo gives you the word rhombus, and you know rhombus has all sides equal. Rhombohedral is 3D structure of the rhombus. Easier way to remember. Monoclinic primitive unit cell. None of the sides equal. And beta is not 90 degree. So it is actually cuboid, and it's a cuboid. And if you press these two ends, then this angle beta will not be 90 degree. This will get disturbed. So if it is a, suppose it's a cuboid, cuboid will have no sides equal, but all angles will be 90 degree, okay, in cuboid. If you press it like this, as I have shown, the beta angle will get disturbed and then it will be monoclinic in itself. Then the last one, triclinic primitive unit cell. Now, when you pressed it in one direction, then it becomes monoclinic. Triclinic means you press the other sides as well, these sides as well. So this angle also gets, this will disturb all the angles. So no side equal, no angles 90 degree. So these are very similar basically. Triclinic primitive and rhombohedral, these are very similar. And as I said, try to memorize all the parameters. It will be good for you. Now, next topic, number of atoms in a unit cell. So why we are talking about number of atoms in a unit cell? As I said that even if the atom is present on the face, it is not entirely in the cell. Okay. Why? Because suppose an atom is at the corner. Then at the corner, it is actually shared by 8 unit cells. 8 unit cells. Okay. Why? Because you have 4 front cells. One, two, three, four. These are towards us, front cells. And then you have 4 back cells also. Five, six, seven, eight on the back side. So if I have an atom here at the center, it is being shared by 4 front ones. That half of the ball is shared by 4 front ones, front unit cells, and half is shared by the back 4 cells. So it means one atom is being shared by 8 unit cells. One atom at corner is being shared by 8 unit cells. Is that clear to everyone? Okay. Suppose an atom is here. So half of it is being shared by 1, 2, 3, 4 unit cells, but half will be outward, which is not shared by any. Only half is there. Yes, Karthik, correct. So it means every atom which is at the corner, only 1/8th part of that belongs to 1 unit cell. Now there are 8 corners. So suppose I am considering this unit cell, okay, this one. So from here, the contribution will be 1/8 only. But it has 8 corners. So on all 8 corners, the contribution will be 1/8. Means 1/8 of the part of the cell will belong to the unit cell. So total 1 unit cell overall will be part of this unit cell. So although entirely the whole atom is not inside this cell, but all 1/8, 1/8, 1/8 contribute to one atom. So the number of atoms, which is also written as in short form NOA, number of atoms, in a primitive unit cell is 1, not 8. Although there are 8 corners, but because one corner contributes only 1 by 8 part, so total will be 8 into 1 by 8, that is only one atom. Now suppose we are talking about body centered cubic cell. So in body centered, there will be one atom at the center, and this is how it will look like. From each corner, the contribution will be 1 by 8, and from the back it will be 1 by 8, okay, which is not shown. And the one which is entirely in the cell, that will contribute to entire one atom, because that is not being shared by anyone. So this, the centered one, is entirely in the unit cell. So the contribution here will be 1 by 8, 8 into 1 by 8 from the corners, plus 1 from the body center. That is, total number of atoms will be 2. Yes, Avnish, correct. Sushi Srivastava, the previous one is that how much is the contribution of atom in one cell. So here what I explained, that this atom is being shared by 8 unit cells. It is being shared by 8 unit cells. Okay. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. All these 8 cells have corner here on this atom. So it means this atom is being shared by 8 unit cells. So each unit cell will get only 1 by 8th part of it. So one atom at corner contributes to 1 by 8th part only to one unit cell. And one unit cell has 8 corners. So each corner will contribute 1 by 8 part. So 8 into 1 by 8 will be one total atom, which can be considered effectively in the unit cell. Is that clear? If not, then listen here. This is a unit cell. On each corner, you have an atom, but this atom does not belong to it entirely. It is being shared by 8 cells. Means this is only 1 by 8 part in this unit cell. 1 by 8 similarly. So all 8 atoms at the corner have 1 by 8 contribution, that is total, it will be one atom effectively. Is that clear? No. So in this case, one atom will be from the corners, total effective contribution, 8 corners, and one body centered, which belongs to entirely to this cell. One from here, total will be 1 plus 1, 2. And why we are doing it? Because this will help us to find the formula of the compound. We will be talking about in next class. Okay? In face-centered cubic cell. Now, if this is a face and there is an atom, this atom will be shared by 2 unit cells. the one on the left and the one on the right. Half by this cell and half by this cell. It means all the atoms which are on the face will have only half of it in one unit cell. Half here, half here. So if I consider one unit cell in this, for example, the contribution of one phase is only half atom. But in face centered, how many faces are there? Total faces 6. So total contribution, one face contributes half, 6 faces will contribute 6 multiplied by half, that is 3 atoms. So all the faces, for example, here, there will be one atom here, one atom here, one atom here, everywhere, okay? So on all 6 faces, there will be atoms, but one atom will be only half in one unit cell. So from the faces, there will be 3 atoms, and from the corners, there will be one atom contribution. So total contribution here will be 3 plus 1, that is 4. Yes, Karthik, correct. 8 corners will contribute to one atom. 6 faces will contribute 6 into half, that is 3 atoms. Total will be 3 plus 1, 4 atoms. And again, this will help us to find the formula of the compounds later on. Now question, give the significance of a lattice point. This question appears, that's why it is important to know the answer. The significance of lattice points means the corners, for example, the atoms which form the lattice. Those are the lattice points. So these are the lattice points. The significance of a lattice point is that each lattice point represents one constituent particle of a solid, which may be an atom, a molecule, or an ion. So whatever I am saying till now, atom, this can be a molecule also. Okay, this can be an ion also. But mostly we will be talking about atom and ions. So write down the answer and memorize it. It appears in 1 mark. The significance of lattice point is that lattice point is actually either an atom or a molecule or an ion. Each lattice point represents one constituent particle of a solid. And solids are formed by atoms or molecules or ions. The lattice points have either atom or molecule or ion. Name the parameters that characterize a unit cell. So all the 6 parameters we have talked about, 3 sides and 3 edges, those are the 6 parameters. Okay. Its dimensions along the 3 edges, that is A, B, C, these edges may or may not be equal. Angles between the edges, that is alpha, beta, and gamma. Remember, alpha is angle between B and C, beta is angle between A and C, and gamma is angle between A and B. opposite sides. Okay. Question. Distinguish between hexagonal and monoclinic unit cells. As I said that you have to remember that table. Most probably question will appear from that table. So hexagonal, you remember that the only difference was that instead of all the three angles equal, okay, the one angle was 120 degree. Apart from that, A and B were equal and C not equal. So A and B equal, C not equal. And alpha and beta equal 90 degree, gamma not equal. Next, face-centered and end-centered unit cells. Face-centered have atoms or the lattice points on all the faces. Okay, we had to do monoclinic as well. Okay, the monoclinic one. And monoclinic one is no side equal. Two angles 90 degree, only alpha and gamma, remember. Okay. A few students make mistake here. They say alpha and beta 90 degree and gamma not 90 degree, which is wrong. Alpha and gamma are 90 degree, beta is not 90 degree. And this is how it looks. Make sure that you memorize the table. Now, face-centered unit cell, all faces have one atom or constant particle, and end-centered opposite ends. Okay? Any two faces, any two opposite faces rather. Okay? They have the constant particle. Next question, explain how much portion of an atom located at corner and body center of a cubic cell is part of its neighboring unit cell. So in corner, it is, yes, let me see the answers first. Yes, Ritika, Avnish, correct. It is 1 by 8 only. Kartik Tyagi, Kartik Dhanai. Mansha, 1 by 4 is not correct. Okay. Ritika, yes, second part correct. Avnish, second part correct. So corner contribution is 1 by 8 and body centered, how much portion of an atom located at. So atom located at body center. So if it is located at body center, its contribution is 1. Corner 1 by 8, at body 1. And remember, if it is total contribution number of atoms, then it will be 2 in case of body centered. Okay. Here I have told you 1 because the question is located at body center. So it means we are talking about only the atom which is at body center, not the whole unit cell. If we are talking about unit cell, then it will be two, one from the body center and whole one from the corners, all the 8 corners. Now the last point, contribution by a particle, just to remember, on the corner contribution is 1 by 8, on the face contribution is 1 by 2, within the body contribution is 1, and on the edge it is contribution 1 by 4. Edge I have not discussed, but edge is actually, suppose it is at the edge. Why are you in so hurry? So it will be shared by 4 unit cells. The one which is towards left, the one which is towards right, and the two will be front. So suppose these are the back ones. So two will be here also. So it will actually be shared by 4 edges. So I am showing you top view. Top view will be like this. Top view will be like this. So if it is on the edge, it is being shared by 4 unit cells. It is not on the corner, okay? It is on the edge, but it is front view. Sorry, top view. It will be like this. So the contribution will be just 1 by